Shalom Aleichem Mishpachim. I am here reading the remainder of Chayei Sarah, the Parsha Chayei Sarah in the book of Genesis. And I'm reading from my Hebrew English Chitas, and this has the Chumash in it. And let us begin. We are reading the 5th, 6th, and 7th reading with Rashi. Also, Rashi is down here, and Torah is up here. So let us begin the 5th reading. Chapter 24, verse 53. And let us begin. Torah says, "The servant took out articles of silver and gold, as well as articles of clothing, and gave them to Rebekah. He gave delectable fruits to her brother and mother." Verse 53, Rashi. Delectable fruits. This is the same meaning as fine fruits. He brought with him various fruits of the land of Israel. Verse 54, Torah. Right here. He and the men who were with him ate, drank, and spent the night. When they rose in the morning, Eliezer said, Send me forth to go back to my master with Rebekah. Verse 54, Rashi, and spent the night. Wherever an account of lodging occurs in Scripture, it refers to spending one night. Verse 55, Torah. Rebekah's brother and mother replied, Let the girl remain with us for a year or 10 months. Afterwards she can go. Verse 55, Rashi. Her brother and mother replied, And where was Bethuel? He had wished to oppose the match, so an angel came and killed him. Days, literally days, means a year, as we find. Its period of redemption is 1 full year. For it is customary to give a maiden 12 months before marriage to provide herself with jewelry, etc. This literally means, or 10 months. Should you suggest that this literally means days, a few days? I will answer you that it is not usual for people to request a small amount, and should you not agree, give us a greater amount. Verse 56, Torah, right here. And he said to them, Do not cause me to tarry, now that God has made my way prosper. Send me forth, so that I can go to my master. Verse 56. Okay, there is no 56, so we'll read verse 56, Torah, or 57, Torah. They said, Let us summon the girl and ask her opinion. They summoned Rebekah and said to her, Do you want to go with this man? She said, I will go. Verse 57 and 58, Rashi. And ask her opinion. We learn from here that a woman should not be given in marriage without her consent. Verse 58, Rashi. She said, I will go of my own accord, and even if you do not want. Verse 59, Torah. So they sent forth their sister Rebekah along with her former wet nurse, who now served as her escort, Abraham's servant and his men. Verse 59, Rashi. There is none, so verse 60, Torah. They blessed Rebekah and said to her, Our sister, may you grow into thousands of myriads, and may your descendants take possession of the cities of their foes. Verse 60, Rashi. May you grow into thousands of myriads. May you and your descendants receive that blessing that was said to Abraham at Mount Moriah. And I will greatly increase your offspring. May it be God's will that those descendants come from you and not from another woman. Verse 61, Torah. Rebekah rose up with her maidens, and they rode on the camels, following the man. The servant thus took Rebekah and set out on his journey. Verse 61, Rashi, there is none, so verse 62, Torah. Isaac had just come up from Be'er L'chai Roi. He had been living in the southern region. Verse 62, Rashi, from Be'er L'chai Roi. For he had gone to bring Hagar to his father Abraham for him to remarry her. Living in the southern region, near to that well, as it says, Abraham journeyed from there to the southern region and settled between Kadesh and Shur. And there the well was situated, as it says, it is between Kadesh and Bered. Verse 63, Torah. Isaac went out to pray in the field in the afternoon. He looked up. He saw camels approaching. Verse 63, Rashi. This is an expression of praying, as in, he pours out his prayer. Verse 64, Torah. When Rebekah looked up and saw Isaac, she slid part way off the camel. Verse 64, Rashi. And saw Isaac. She saw how majestic he was, and was astonished at him. And she fell, means she let herself move down towards the ground, as Onkelos translates it. She leaned down towards the ground, but did not reach the ground. Similarly, Onkelos translates, please tilt your pitcher by, and he bent heaven is translated. Okay, so this is a grammatical commentary, so I'll move on to 65, Torah. She said to the servant, who is this man walking towards us in the field? The servant said, this is my master. She then took her veil and covered herself. Verse 65, Rashi, down here. And covered herself. This is a hitzba'el, reflexive form which expresses a passive meaning like, and she was buried, and it was broken. Verse 66, Torah. The servant told Isaac all that he had done. Isaac brought Rebekah into the tent of his mother Sarah and married Rebekah. She became his wife, and he loved her. Isaac was then consoled over the loss of his mother. All right. Where are we? Verse 66. Rashi. The servant told, he revealed to him the miracles that had happened to him, and the earth had shrunk for him, and that Rebekah came his way during his prayer. Verse 67, Rashi, into the tent of his mother Sarah. The phrase is superfluous and is written to indicate Rebekah's merit. He brought her into the tent, and she was his mother Sarah. In other words, she became exactly like his mother Sarah. For as long as Sarah was alive, the lamp would remain lit in her tent from one Sabbath and eve until the next Sabbath eve. There was always a blessing, a miraculous increase in the dough, and a cloud constantly hovered over the tent. But since she died, all these had ceased, and when Rebekah came, they resumed. Over the loss of his mother, it is natural that as long as a man's mother is alive, he is attached to her, and once she dies, he finds consolation in his wife. Torah, chapter 25, verse 1, beginning the 6th reading. Abraham married Hagar again after Sarah died as a free woman. Hagar's nickname now was Keturah. Verse 1, Rashi, chapter 25, verse 1. Keturah, this was Hagar, but she was called Keturah because her deeds were as sweet as the incense offered in the holy temple, and also because she tied up her entrance, reproductive organs, so that she not have relations with anyone else from the time she separated from Abraham. Verse 2, Torah. She bore him Zimran, Yokshan, Medan, Midian, Yishbak, and Shuach. Verse 3, Torah. Yoshkan was the father of Sheva and Dedan. The sons of Dedan became the leaders of the Ashurim, the Letushim, and the Leumim. Verse 3, Rashi, Ashurim, Letushim. These are the names of the heads of nations. Onkelos' translation of these words, however, I am unable to reconcile with the words of the verse. He explains as meaning traveling camps. So this is another grammatical, or somewhat of a grammatical. Let's read this one. Letushim, Onkelos translates these to be dwellers who spread out in all directions, each traveling with their own tents and quarters. Similarly, it says, and they are spread over the entire land. For Lamed and Nun are often interchangeable. Verse 5 or 4, Torah. Verse 4, Torah. The sons of Midian were Ephah, Epher, Chanoch, Avida, and Eldah. All these were Keturah's descendants. Verse 5, Torah. Abraham gave all that he owned to Isaac. Verse 5, Rashi. Abraham gave. Rabbi Nehemiah said he gave the blessings as a legacy to him, for the Holy One, blessed be he, had said to Abraham, and you will become a source of blessing. The blessings are entrusted to you, to bless whomever you wish, and Abraham now gave them over to Isaac. Verse 6, Torah. Abraham gave to the son of Hagar, the concubine, whom Abraham had taken, all the material gifts he had received from others. During his lifetime, he sent these sons eastward to the eastern lands, away from his son Isaac. Verse 6, Rashi. Concubines. This word is written without a yud before the mem, because there was only one concubine who was married twice, once when she was named Hagar, and a second time when she was named Keturah. Although Keturah no longer had the status of a bondwoman, she is referred to as a concubine because wives are those who are married with a ketubah, marriage contract, whereas concubines are those married without a ketubah, as it says in Sanhedrin concerning the wives and concubines of King David. Abraham gave gifts. Our rabbis explained that this means that he transmitted to them how to protect themselves from the forces of impurity. Another explanation, that which had been given to him on account of Sarah and other gifts which were given to him. Everything he gave to them because he did not want to benefit from these gifts. Verse 7, Torah. These are the days of the years of Abraham's lifetime. He lived 175 years. Verse 7, Rashi. 100 years, 70 years, and 5 years. Each unit of his lifespan is written separately to indicate that he was 100 years old when he was 100 years old. When he was 100 years old, he returned his youthful vitality into like a man of 70, the age begetting children in his generation. And at 70, he was like a 5-year-old without sin. So he retained his youthful years at the age of 100 like a man who was 70. Verse 8, Torah. Abraham expired and died in good old age, mellow and content, and he was gathered to his people in the afterlife. Verse 9, Torah. His sons, Isaac and Ishmael, buried him in the cave of Machpelah, in the field of Ephron, son of Zochar the Hittite, facing the plains of Mamre. Verse 9, Rashi. Isaac and Ishmael. From here we learn that Ishmael repented, and therefore allowed Isaac to lead the burial procession before him. This is what is meant by a good old age, mentioned in connection with Abraham. Verse 10, Torah. The field that Abraham purchased from the Hittites is thus where Abraham and his wife Sarah were buried. Verse 11, Torah. After Abraham died, God blessed Isaac his son. Isaac lived in the vicinity of Beer Lachai Roi. Okay, so verse 11, Rashi. And Abraham died. After Abraham died, God blessed. He confronted him with the blessing of consolation given to mourners. Another explanation of the nature of the blessing. Although the Holy One, blessed be he, had entrusted the blessings to Abraham, Abraham was afraid to bless Isaac because he foresaw that Esau would come forth from him. He therefore said, let the master of blessings come and bless whomever he sees fit. And the Holy One, blessed be he, came and blessed Isaac. Okay, so we're now finished the 6th reading. Now we are on the 7th reading. Verse 12, Torah. The following are the descendants of Ishmael, son of Abraham, whom Hagar, the Egyptian, Sarah's bondwoman, bore to Abraham. Verse 13, Torah. These are the names of Ishmael's sons in order of their birth. Nevayot, Ishmael's firstborn. Kedar, Abdel, Mivsam, Mishma, Duma, Masa. Verse 13, Rashi. By their names, according to their birth, means in their order of birth, one after the other. Verse 14, Mishma, Duma, Masa, Chadad, Tema, Yetur, Nafish, and Kedma. Verse 16, the Maftir. These were the names of Ishmael's sons, and these names were given as well to their open towns and their strongholds. There were 12 chieftains for their nations. These are the years of Ishmael's life. He was 137 years old when he died, and was gathered to his people. Ishmael's descendants dwelled in the area between Havilah and Shur, which borders on Egypt, along the road from Shur toward Assyria. Ishmael dwelt in the company of all his kin. Verse 16, Rashi, in their open towns, in unwalled cities. Onkelos' translation is, which means that they were, meaning open, as in burst out in song. These are the years of Ishmael's life. Rebbe Chia bar Abba said, why are the years of Ishmael enumerated? In order to trace through them the years of Jacob. From calculating the years of Ishmael, we can deduce that Jacob studied 14 years in the study house of Ever, after parting from his father, before he came to Laban. For at the time Jacob parted from his father, Ishmael died. As it says, Esau went to Ishmael, as is explained at the end of chapter Megillah Nikret. He breathed his last. The expression breathing one's last is used only in reference to the righteous. Rashi, verse 18, he fell, means here he dwelt, as in the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the people of the east were encamped in the valley. Here the verse uses the term falling to express dwelling, while elsewhere it says, he will dwell in the company of all his kin, a term implying prestige and security. This teaches us that before Abraham died, Ishmael dwelt securely, but after Abraham died, he fell from his status. So that is the end of Chayei Sarah. So I'll set that there. And we will read from the daily wisdom on the weekly Parshiot from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Chabad Lubavitcher Rebbe. And this is a different book, so we will move. Chayei Sarah. I believe we're on the 5th reading, and let us begin. The 5th reading, we just read Genesis, Bereshis, chapter 24, verses 53 through 67. Eliezer set out with Rebekah back to Canaan to meet Isaac. They happened upon Isaac in the late afternoon as he was praying. The title of this wisdom of the Parsha from the Lubavitcher Rebbe is called Transforming the Field. Isaac went out to pray in the field toward evening. We recite the morning prayer before beginning our workday and the evening prayer before completing our day's activities. In contrast, the afternoon prayer requires us to stop in the midst of our mundane affairs and focus on God. Our daily mundane affairs are symbolized by the field, the area outside the city limits, which is untamed and uncultivated. Through praying in the afternoon, Isaac transformed the field into a place of prayer to God. The morning prayer undeniably serves as our principal daily renewal of divine consciousness. Nonetheless, afterward, it remains to be seen how we will fare when we go out into the field. Will the secular and material influences of the field cause us to lose the spiritual awareness and closeness to God that we achieved during the morning prayer? By pausing in the middle of our mundane affairs in order to recite the afternoon prayer, we demonstrate that our involvement in material affairs does not separate us from God. Wonderful. And we'll move on over here to the 6th reading. Genesis, which is Bereshis, chapter 25, verses 1 through 11. Hagar adopted monotheism when she first became Sarah's bondwoman, but after she and her son Ishmael were banished from Abraham's household, she lapsed back into her former practice of idolatry. Shortly after Sarah's death and Isaac's marriage to Rebekah, Abraham remarried Hagar, who had by then permanently renounced idolatry, eventually having 6 additional sons through her. The title of this Parshiot wisdom is called God's Pleasure in Our Return. Abraham remarried Hagar, the woman who was now also named Keturah. Hagar was renamed Keturah, which means incense, because, having permanently renounced idolatry, her deeds were now as pleasing to God as incense. One of the ingredients of the incense that was offered up in the holy temple was musk, which was derived from the blood of a non-kosher animal. This demonstrates the incense's unique capability to elevate even entities on the lowest rung of spirituality to the heights of holiness. Hagar, who is Keturah, is therefore compared to the incense, because her return to Abraham and the path of truth after having lapsed into idolatry mirrors this unique characteristic of the temple's incense. From this we learn how great is the pleasure we can give God by returning to Him after any lapse in our own behavior. The seventh reading, and this is titled Proper Roles. Abraham died when he was 175 years old, and after chronicling Abraham's death, the Torah lists the descendants of Ishmael before continuing with the chronicle of Isaac in the next section. Ishmael dwelt in the company of all his descendants. This statement echoes God's earlier promise to Abram that Ishmael would dwell in the company of all his descendants, but with one significant difference. The literal translation of the word for he dwelt, used here, nafal, is he fell. The Torah thus informs us that as long as Abraham was alive, Ishmael dwelt securely in his father's merit. But once Abraham died, Ishmael fell and began to be harassed by his enemies. On a deeper level, this statement teaches us that Ishmael's well-being depends upon his recognition of his status of Abraham's son. As long as the spirit of Abraham lives within him and he acknowledges Abraham's designation of Isaac as his successor, he is capable of dwelling securely and prosperously. As soon as Abraham perishes in Ishmael's mind and he ignores his identity, he falls into danger and affliction. We see here that honoring our Jewish role as Abraham's rightful heirs, God's chosen people, is not only not detrimental to other nations, but on the contrary, it is the ultimate way to bring maximum benefit to them. And that is the wisdom of from the Lubavitcher Rebbe on the Torah portion of Chai Sarah in the book of Genesis. Bereshis. All right. Have a wonderful Shabbat.